Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by the one and only Mr. Johnny Larkin. How are you, Johnny?
Oh, pretty fantastic. We had football back. That's always good. It's always good to see the Hoops back out there on GMHBA. They've only been a match sim, but tell you, it was still pretty exciting to watch the lads run out again and do their thing.
Absolutely. In a very trendy what do you call it? Clash jersey, Clash Guernsey,
Yeah.
Clash strip, which I thought looked really nice, Johnny. I thought that looked pretty swish.
I really liked it as well. It's definitely a slight improvement over the t-shirt type thing they tried for a couple of years.
Yes, no, I agree. Totally agree. Lots to talk about on tonight's show. The main part of it, of course, will be the AFL men, Cats v Hawks match sim recap. We're going to dish all of our thoughts on that, Johnny. And then, of course, later in the show, we will duck over and do a Patreon exclusive section, which will be about overlooked off-season stuff. So there's some things we maybe didn't pay due attention to during the off-season that we're going to hit now. We're going to circle back and talk about those now tonight on the Patreon part of the show. So make sure you go on over, start your 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon and get access to extended shows, VFL men's and women's coverage of the Cats, early access bits and pieces, all that and more before we launch into the show in full, Johnny. We have to say a massive Hoops Crew Media Network thank you to our Hoops Crew Media Network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. You can visit them at www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. You can phone them up on 035 222 or walk on over and visit them at Shop 12, 11 Leather Street in Breakwater. And Johnny, this season, Cyril Cook Florist, our glorious media network sponsor, are offering our listeners, our viewers, a 20% off discount off their next purchase. All you've got to do is use the offer code GOCATS at checkout on the website. So there's a little voucher field there. You just put GOCATS in there and it'll knock 20% off your next purchase with Cyril Cook Florist. And we thank them massively for their sponsorship, not only of our show, but of the whole Hoops Crew Media Network. All right, Johnny, let's launch in. It's time to talk about the first game of footy for the Cats in 2025. I'll tee it up for you. We've got to get back in the habit. Johnny, I was thinking today, how do we do a match? How do we do a recap anymore? It's been so long since we've done one. This is how it goes. I give you a bit of a recap. This game opened, Johnny, with the Cats well and truly in command. The ball, the footy lived in Geelong's half of the field, almost in their front 50 for much of the first quarter. Indeed, a large chunk of the first half. But Geelong were unable to capitalize when they got it up towards that front 50. Their transition play looked gorgeous, but the kicking inside 50 and some of the kicking when it was inside 50 left a little bit to be desired. Geelong took a 3-8, 26 to 2-2, 14 lead in at the first change of ends. They would extend that lead to 49-34 at halftime, but the Hawks had started to sort of muscle their way back into this match. Some of Geelong's key ball winners, your Bailey Smiths, your Patrick Dangerfields, started to get less time as halftime neared. Quarter three, Hawthorn really did storm back. This, in a lot of ways, mirrored the first quarter of the game where Hawthorn had control. It lived in their half of the field. In fact, it lived in their front third for much of the third quarter, and they did put their noses, their beaks in front at one point in the third quarter. But Geelong, they rallied with some late scores to go up 74-66 at the three-quarter time break. And it was an evenly fought contest in the final term. There was moments where they traded goals, but in the end, Johnny, it was Geelong, the home team. Too much class where it counted. A lot of that inside 50 with Ollie Henry. They triumph 106-87. It's 4 goals for Ollie Henry, 3 goals to Brad Close, 2 each to Jeremy Cameron and Shannon Neal, and singles to Wiltshire, which was an absolute cracker of a goal. One to Grind Myers, one to Max Holmes, which had shades of Gary Ablett's 2007 grand final goal, intercepting, sort of batting down a kick, burning through the attacking 50, collecting the ball and slotting the goal. That was his one goal, and Connor O'Sullivan snuck one through the big sticks as well. That's how it unfolded, Johnny. 106-87, a win for the Cats. They didn't have it all their own way, but they get the job done in the first official hit out of the year. What's your opening statement?
It definitely was knocking the rust off for a few players there, especially some of the more senior core group. There was a few moments where they go, oh, that was just, expect that to happen in a match sim where, the pretty experienced players are going to make some pretty hilarious mistakes. But, that's what preseason's for, is to brush off the dust, get the rust off, and get ready to go for a season. And I think that's what the Cats were able to achieve in this match sim. They knocked off the dust and looked pretty good out there. They were moving it nice and quick, as you said. Told me and Sam, you watched some of the interclub match sim just between the Cats, and he said they looked to move it really fast and quick, and they definitely did that. They were able to move it really efficiently from defence to the forward through to midfield, and all linking up and still carrying on to play as well from the back. Like the back players were pushing up as well and always finding a way to be involved. So that was a really promising sign, especially from some of the younger players that are starting to, find their way into the side. But yeah, I thought overall a good game to get some of that pre-season issues out of the way. They're still got to fix up the goal kicking, but to me that wasn't a too big of an issue because they all weren't set shots. Like I think our set shots looked pretty accurate. I say we were probably ahead in the set shots. It was more just those on the run shots at goal that, you might have the 50-50 efficient rate in that. So I wasn't too overly worried about that. I thought the defense was absolutely elite early on in the game. Just weren't letting the scum through at all. That midfield defensive unit were pretty on song, and especially when Max Holmes, Blick Savs, and Tom Stewart were out in that second half. They still worked pretty well. Like you could tell there was a bit of a drop in the way they were able to set up and the professionalism and all that. But that's without Stewart, that's without Holmes, Big Sav. So it's a whole lot of experience out, but I still thought that defensive unit held up really well. So overall, it's maybe very excited for this year because I think the Cats went out there, played really well, and they look raring to go. I think it's going to be an exciting year from a match sim hit out.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Like with a match sim, because you sort of go in with all this sort of thoughts about, well, you can't take too much away from it. Players are going to be on managed minutes. Players might be playing in slightly different positions to what they're going to. Reece Stanley didn't come in till the last quarter. The opening term. In fact, I think the opening half was managed between Sam de Koning and Mark Blixarves. They brought, I think, Mitch Edwards in quarter 3 to do some rucking, and Reece Stanley came in late. I don't know if that says anything about the order of operations and how Geelong's ruck, pecking order shapes up this year. I'd sort of doubt it, but then again, who knows? I think it probably was more to do with just giving Reece Stanley, who will probably be the starter, just limited or managed minutes. And you sort of had that, Patrick Dangerfield was barely sort of sighted, and a lot of the time that he was sighted, he was playing inside the forward 50. I thought it was noticeable, Johnny, that, when Bailey Smith went out of the game, I thought that if he had have played 4 quarters, he would have been a pretty clear best on ground for the Cats. I thought he looks transformative. There was the one moment, we were absolutely burning players inside 50, or we were like lobbing it down on top of the heads of intercepting Hawks players. Just turning the ball over, going inside forward 50 and butchering a lot of really great transition play. And then there was just this moment on sort of wing half forward flank where Bailey Smith took on a man, had an extra burst of pace, and just delivered a nice little chip kick inside the 50 to a teammate. And you could hear it in the crowd. Like it was a different kind of buzz when that moment happened. And I have to say, I've been saying all off season, don't expect, don't pin all our hopes on Bailey Smith, don't overhype it too much. And I still believe that it's got to be more than one player. But geez, if he plays to the level that he's shown he can reach, in, as we call it, the old Civil War reenactment, the match sim, no one's muskets are loaded. There's no cannonballs flying yet, but he looks a powerful, powerful addition. And like it just sort of there were moments where I just went, oh shit, that's what it's like to have, more than just one or two A-grade midfielders. Now, the idea that, you've got Max Holmes and Bailey Smith at the peak of their powers, and Dangerfield, the third one of them who maybe is reaching sort of the twilight of his career, like that was exciting. It's like, and then, so I want to circle back around and talk about Tanner Bruin, Johnny, but first I just want to talk about, I guess, some of the negatives. And that was just that I thought there were some shades of some of the stuff we didn't do particularly well last year. We talked at length last year about using the ball well inside 50. There was never anything problematic about our build-up play. Transitioning from backline to attack last year, I didn't think. I thought that often looked good. It was then wasting chances going inside 50. And I thought we did a lot of that. Like that opening quarter in particular was very, very frustrating to watch. There are only a couple of players who used it really well going inside 50. And then you alluded to it with the goal kicking. There was just some goal kicking that was, a little off. And I think that ebbs and flows. But the entry inside 50 bothered me quite a bit. And then the other thing I would just say is that there was a time in the second half, it was the third quarter really, where the stoppages, we were competing terribly at the stoppages and just getting absolutely manhandled and outpointed is probably a better way of saying it at the clearance situations. And we didn't defend brilliantly. And maybe this is more of a criticism of the midfield. Maybe the midfield didn't defend the stoppage situation very well when we lost the footy. It was going in quickly. And there were just those moments where Hawthorn, I think it was in the third quarter, if I just flick back, I didn't know what stats we'd actually have, so I had my little notebook and I was noting down each score. I was noting down the flow of play. I think it was in the third quarter. Yeah, it opened with Hawks goal, Hawks behind, Hawks goal, Cats get a goal, Hawks get a goal. Like they had a real flow on in that third quarter. It gave me a bit of PTSD of last year, John.
Yeah, it was definitely when there was no Max Holmes, no Bailey Smith. Who else was in that? Yeah, it was those two key players in that midfield. You really felt their influence and presence was missing, and Hawthorn were able to capitalise pretty easily on those two missing. But yeah, I agree with you with the going inside 50s, like just not kicking smartly inside 50, just trying to get it in there as quickly as possible, which can work, especially if Shannon Neal's going to crash packs or take a mark, or same with Ollie Henry, Jeremy Cameron. But You don't want to rely on that all the time. You sort of want to find those more pinpoint passes, like Brian Myers. Like some of his passes inside 50 were pretty elite, especially that one to Dangerfield, like a sizzling pass straight into his chest. Unfortunately, we all know what Dangerfield's like in front of the big sticks. We know what Dangerfield's like in front of the big sticks. He's not the most reliable kick, so he sprayed it, unfortunately. But yeah, like that third quarter was a bit of a worry. But also just heading back from mine, I was like, oh yeah, there's no Blixavs, no Stewart, no Smith, no Max Holmes in that midfield. It's a fairly young, inexperienced midfield. Even though no Tanner Bruin was there actually, but yeah, he's still got a bit to go. But yeah, I always thought those pretty key players just aren't there to help steady the ship. So I wasn't too worried, but I would be a bit worried if we find ourselves without Holmes and Smith at all through, like in a game or one or two games or whatever. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, I agree with you on the other part. And yeah, Smith, he looked good. No, I'm trying to not get too excited, but it's getting difficult.
Oh, look, I think at the end of the day, if he's healthy, he's going to be a star. If he's healthy, he's going to be one of our best, like 3 or 4 players on the whole field. I think that's probably, if he's healthy and out there, he can be a difference maker. And maybe it's just I've been protecting myself the last few seasons. You know, as we've lost some of our best sort of difference making ball winners. You know, Selwood's, you know, aged and retired, as Cam Guthrie has battled with injury. I was just looking today at the match sim, you know, lineup, and you know, Cam Guthrie's out with an Achilles injury, according to the medical report. You know, Sean Manor didn't feature because of a foot. Toby Conway, the ruck thing, he's out with a back injury. You know, I think I've protected myself a bit, going like
Humphreys.
Yeah. And so I've sort of been going, well, we don't need a flashy midfielder. We don't need a flashy midfielder. We don't need a, but then you actually get another one and you're like, man, this makes a difference. This just makes everything so much easier when you don't have to put Stewart into the middle. You can have Stewart play wherever you'd really like him to play, and you can play Bailey Smith on ball, and you can play Holmes on ball, and you know, it just gives you it just makes life easier. And I think it speaks to how good Chris Scott is as a coach, that he's been able to get a group of players, you know, to prelims and stuff without that additional player like a Bailey Smith. But I feel like if you're a Cats coach, you'll be licking your lips at what you can do with a player like Smith in the side. I thought we probably lacked a bit of pressure inside the. Sorry, you go.
I was just going to say, and just going on the Smith playing in the midfield, it now gives Dangerfield that opportunity to play in the forward 50. I did say his set shots aren't great, but his marking and his will to get to the contest is something that's going to be pretty immense inside that 50, and he can easily go on ball if we need him. But just to have a Dangerfield presence in that forward line could also make a huge difference, because he can crash packs and take absolute screamers. And last year we saw him kick a really crucial goal in the Saints game. So yeah, I think it's just, as you said, it's just going to make things so much easier for so many players, having the body of Smith in there, being able to do what Dangerfield was doing, what Selwood was doing, but he's younger and he looks raring to go.
Yeah, I thought we probably missed a little bit of the forward tackling pressure of Sean Manor and Tyson Stengel. That was another thing I thought. You know, the commentators at one point made a point, Geelong's forward half pressure has been really good in the first quarter. And if you forward half, as in locking it in the forward half, but locking it inside the front 50 was actually quite difficult. It bounced out of there a number of times. I thought we were just lucky that not lucky, but we were well set up defensively to chop it off back down the line. but the actual pressure on the ball and trying to force stoppages inside the forward 50 or holding the ball calls, I thought was a little bit lacking. I was probably a little bit disappointed with that part of it, and it makes sense when you think there was no Sean Manor, there was no Tyson Stengel. Was probably a little bit underwhelmed with the efforts of, and look, Mitch Nevitt had his moments, but I guess I was just, I don't know, I was hoping to see just a little bit more. Likewise, and I'm a massive Ted Closey fan. I probably looked at Closey and Clark and thought,
Still a
I'm
bit of
glad we
work.
I'm glad we brought Bailey Smith in, because I think you noticed when those guys were put to the coalface at different points that it probably flowed Hawthorn's way quite a bit. That's not to say they're, it's the end of the road for them or anything, but you said it. There's work to be done to get those guys up.
They're still really young players, and you can tell like they just don't have the bodies for it yet. Because you compare Clark, Closey, Nevitt to the Hawthorn midfielders, you can see there's a pretty sizable difference in like the body build. So they've still got work to go. Doesn't, as you said, it doesn't mean they're not going to be terrible players. It just means they've still got things to work on to get their game at that level. And as many people say, it takes a long. Some players takes longer to get to a certain physical fitness where they can compete properly. And I don't think they're just there yet. But he said there was those moments that did get me excited from each of those players where you go, oh yeah, that's a good moment that they can look at and go, yeah, that's something I've done really well. I can work on that. And they all of them had those good moments. So yeah, it's only upsides from here for those three players. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Nevitt's a case of, like, I keep waiting for that bulk to kind of be added. It's he's clearly fit and he can run and he can chase and all that. But I sort of look at him and go, he's probably not right. He's probably not quite fast enough to play out genuinely like as a burning kind of wing player. Like, and I know you don't have to have just out and out speed to play wing. We've played Sam Menegola on a wing, for goodness sake. But like Closey definitely needs like his season, really, his success this year. I know there's been a lot of hype and they talked about it on the broadcast, with Closey. And anyone who's followed my VFL coverage on the Patreon knows like Ted Closey is my player that I've sort of, I've gone all in on. But I think he needs a massive VFL season. I think he needs to show that he's way too good for VFL level, but maybe just needs another off season in the Cats program to bulk up and get AFL ready. I don't know. I would personally be surprised. They said, oh, he's someone who might be in line for a lot more games this year, per the commentary team. I don't know. I would disagree. I don't think he's quite there yet, but I think he can do himself a massive favor by stacking another massive year in the VFL. Clark's an interesting one for me. Like, I think there's talent there, but again, he's still quite small bodied compared to the others. And I know that's a matter of time and all that sort of thing. And maybe he'll find that. But those guys are two, I think will be spending, I don't know, if all being well and all being healthy, I think those two guys will be spending quite a bit of time in the VFL this year, which is fine.
I agree.
Because I think we're deeper. But Johnny,
I tell you what, if we're keeping Clark and Nevitt and Closey in the VFL side, I think they'll be most likely playing at other teams that they're at, especially low in the ladder. So the Cats have got good depth, and I think they showed that they've got good depth. Like as you said, they still got outplayed a lot by the Hawks in that third and fourth quarter, but they still had their moments. They still had those really good moments where they got the clearance, they out-muscled the Hawks, they outplayed them. But yeah, they've still got a bit of work to do before, as you said, they're not going to get a lot of AFL games this year. They'll probably get one or two here and there. But yeah, I agree with you. They just go back to the VFL, work on building up muscle, getting the frame, getting that rig built up so they can hit next year even
Set up.
stronger. And
That's right. Set
we're
up.
not in a rush. Like they've got the time
Yeah.
to get everything right. That's the good thing about the
Is that
Cats.
Zach Guthrie's the classic example we always use on the
Yeah,
podcast of like a player who, it took him a long time. I think we sort of forget, like he was really super reliable again today. Zach Guthrie's a player who played 9 games in year 1 in 2017, 7 games year 2 in 2018, 1 game in 2019, 3 games in 2020, 13 games in 2021. So across, the first 5 years, it was essentially, I think 30, 32 games, just off the top of my head, maybe 33 games in his first 5 seasons, and then ever since he's played 20 games plus. And I
yeah,
remember talking about it on the pod back in 2021, going, it's one of those things. He just doesn't, he's got to just add that extra bit of, bulk and power, so he doesn't get pushed out of marking contests, so he doesn't get shoved off the ball. And if he feels more comfortable in his body, he's going to feel more comfortable with the way he uses the footy. And it all just happened in 2022. I thought it really all came together. Now, we are going to do votes for this game, Johnny. We're going to do a 1, 2, and a 3
so.
votes. Just
I thought we were,
so
so I
we
sort
can
of
get
had a
into
few in
practice.
mind.
Excellent. I did mine. Before we go there,
Yes.
let's talk about. I want to throw a couple of names at you.
All right.
First of all, Tanner Bruin looked. I was really impressed with his game. One,
Yeah.
I thought he had actually. Speaking of people improving the rig, I thought he was one who like he was, definitely had an AFL type body last year, but I thought he'd gone to another level this year. And Johnny,
Definitely.
what I loved about Tanner Bruin's game is he was just solid. Like I reckon he must have racked up 25 plus touches, and I didn't see him cock it up too much. I didn't see him try and overuse or overdo it. And for 4 quarters, I just thought he was Geelong's most consistent winner of the ball. And when it was on the line in the 4th quarter, he did some really good stuff. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, couldn't agree anymore. Like you said, he's got his body in a good spot now, and he looked strong. He looked comfortable, and he looked confident in his own abilities. So that was really pleasing to see. And as he said, he didn't make many mistakes. The only mistakes he really did make was going inside 50, where he may have just rushed a bit or just thought the player was going to lead there or miscommunication. But apart from that, he played a very solid game, very consistent, and it was really pleasing to see. And yeah, he was one of those players that was pushing the ball forward in that 3rd and 4th quarter when the scum were on top in the midfield. So yeah, it was really pleasing to see him take that next step.
I think, last year he averaged a career high 17 and a half disposals per game. I reckon he'll go 20 plus this year. Maybe if we're doing our stonks show, in a week or two, I'd be saying 20 plus disposals for Tanner Bruin is very, very
Yep,
achievable. Even in a
very
midfield that
achievable.
might include, Bailey Smith and Holmes and Danger, etc. The other
It's
name
pretty
I
good.
wanted to throw your way. Well, let's talk about Max Holmes. What did you think about his game?
Just Max Holmes was amazing. That was elite. If he's going to play like
Classy.
that throughout the season, look out. Like I thought he was just took off from 2024, and I think he's gonna get better throughout this year. He looked confident. He backed himself every time, as we expect. He got a really like that goal he got was just amazing. Like their awareness to just cut across, get the intercept and slot it so easily was awesome to watch. And I thought him and Smith worked really well in unison in that midfield / half forward area. So I can't wait to see Max Holmes playing in the hoops again. Like that was exciting. He's going to be an absolute superstar for the Cats.
with his hair the way it is, I feel like he should be conducting an orchestra in like the early 1800s, though.
Absolutely. He
You
is.
know, it's a bit of
It's
like
the football.
orchestra of the hoops midfield. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just I can imagine with the baton,
Yeah.
really giving the conducting performance is all. All right, third name I'm going to
Tell you
throw
who
at you,
else.
Johnny.
I was
Yes,
just going
go.
to say there's one other player talking about the Rigs who built up his rig who shocked me big time was Connor O'Sullivan. I
Oh,
sent you a message
you've gone
as well.
exactly where I wanted you to go, Johnny. So give us your
Oh,
thoughts
lovely.
on Connor O'Sullivan.
Like he's there he looked tall and strong, and he played tall and strong. I thought that was a really impressive performance by him, and I think he's put his hand up for a possible opening round performance. Like I don't
Mm,
think he could have done anything more in that. What is it, like his third, fourth game? And yeah,
mm.
he looked confident. He looked strong, and he was taking really good marks, competing. He got a really nice goal. And what I really liked was he never gave up. Whenever he was around the ball, he was chasing, harassing, or aiming to get the ball out to a Cats player. So yeah, I think he's done everything he could to put his hand up for that opening round one. Yeah, I, I, I think he'll be in strong contention for a spot in the 22.
Yeah, like he's only played one AFL game
One game.
last season, 11 disposals, 3 marks, 1 tackle. I agree, Johnny. Like, I think right now he's probably in that position where I think he's at his best, where he can sort of zone off and play that intercepting role. I think there's going to be times where you saw it in the finals in the VFL where clever and powerful teams are going to be able to isolate him one on one, and he
Mm,
might not yet have that hardness and competitive nous to win those one-on-one battles. If he lines up on a super experienced key forward, as a for instance, that might be something he struggles with. And I mean, I'm stating the obvious, but that's not to say that there's not a role for him in this Geelong side at the moment. And it's
yeah.
such an easy comparison to make between he and Blixarves, but gosh, it feels
Oh, he's
accurate.
good.
Like if you think about young Blixarves, um, something I loved was O'Sullivan, not only the goal, but him gallivanting forward at one time. Now, he absolutely botched the kick, but he was in position to put the ball
That
inside
was
50. But it was just his joining the attack that got me
yeah,
really excited. And then some great intercept marks too. Jack Henry and Jake
yep,
Kolodjasny both also, I thought, had fantastic games,
they both look
and
good.
fantastic moments taking
Yeah,
intercept marks. Kolodjasny, I thought, probably the pick of the bunch out of the defenders, to be honest. He was seemingly everywhere, spoiling and marking once he came into the game.
yep.
Let's do votes, Johnny. I don't know what
Alright.
format you followed. I tried to do a 3-2-1 or a 1-2-3 that
Yeah,
I tried to
basically done the
isolate
same.
it to players that played most of the game, so like
Yep.
I'll just tell you, Bailey Smith isn't in my votes. Max Holmes isn't in my votes. And it's really only because I thought they played somewhat managed minutes. I think if they
Mm.
played the sort of game
I
time they'll play, um,
I think
so
I think
I'll
they're
just,
gonna steal a
I'll,
lot of votes off each other this year. I've got a feeling.
yeah, definitely. So I went, Johnny, with 1 vote to Brad Close.
Nice.
I reckon if you looked at his stats, and I don't have them obviously because I don't think there were any stats for this game, at least not that I saw. I reckon he would have had to have what, 15, 16, 17 touches, something in that realm. I reckon he laid a lot of good tackles. He did that hard running to be the link man between, midfield and attack. And to go with that, he booted 3 goals. So
Oh,
I think Brad Close continues to be super, super valuable to this team. I gave him my 1 vote. Who was your 1 vote, John?
oh, it's a tough one because I
Mm,
haven't really. I was thinking about it, and I'm sort of I'm an Arin. I'm just gonna go with yeah, I'm gonna go with Connor O'Sullivan. I'm gonna give him one vote.
Yep.
For the reason why we spoke earlier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought it was a pretty he showed off all the attributes he'd been developing
Yeah.
at VFL level last season. So, while I think he can feature this year, I'm very excited about what his 2026 might look like. I think
Yes.
that might be a real uptick year for him. Even if 2025 is still, sometimes he's in the side, sometimes he's out. As he gets used to sort of the rigors of AFL footy. I'm going to Ollie Henry for my 2 votes. I
Ooh,
just thought, and we don't always go, I suppose, with the player who kicks the most goals, but today I just thought he was so important. Like, I think all 4 goals came in the second half, if I'm correct. I think he kicked
I
2 in the
think so,
third
yeah.
quarter, and 2 in the. Let's fact check myself.
Fourth.
I know he kicked 2 in the last quarter. He did. He kicked the last 2 goals of the
Mm,
third quarter, and then he kicked the last 2 goals of the fourth quarter. So, you
nice.
think about Geelong are behind going into three-quarter time if it's not for Ollie Henry kicking 2 goals, one of which was an absolute stunner
Oh,
from the
that
boundary.
was ridiculous.
And then, a game we end up winning 106-87. He's the one who puts the icing on the cake to slam the door shut. So I just thought,
Yeah,
he played, he scored goals in the half where we didn't have the best of the play either, where it was a real game and you needed to be on your
yeah.
toes and taking your chances. 4 goals for Ollie Henry. Very, very good performance.
Very good
I
performance.
think he can kick 50 this year. Johnny, what about you? Who was your 2?
I'm going with Tanner Bruin for my 2 reasons why we said earlier. Really good game. As you said, most consistent throughout. So I'm guessing he's going to be probably your 3 vote getter. Just at a random guess.
Tanner Bruin is my 3 votes for all the reasons said above. And one of the things I liked was that I kept mistaking him for other people. I'd be like, "Oh, great kick, Ollie," because I thought it was Dempsey, and I'm like, "Wait, that was Tanner Bruin," or "Great," at one point I think I said, "Great spoil Blix," and then I was like, "Holy shit, that was Tanner Bruin." There's too many blondes with headbands down there, but what I liked about it is he was doing all of the things that I've wanted to see him do.
Yeah,
That was the like if I could just copy paste that Tanner Bruin game for the rest of time, then he's an automatic selection. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like he was just did all the basic things really well, and he does have a knack for finding the footy. He does have a knack for extracting clearances. He averaged, 5.1 clearances last season, so it was a big jump for him. I was super, super impressed and heartened by this performance. And geez, if
yeah,
he maybe Johnny, he can be a bit of that Cam Guthrie, like less flash than some of the other players around him. But if he can become that, 6+ clearances a game type player, that 20+ touches a game, and just getting it out to the danger makers, then yeah,
ready
his
for the
importance
top.
to the side could be huge. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
Where'd you go? Who was your best on?
Oh, I'm going with Ollie Henry. Nice 4 goals, as you said, at really important times. And as we said, we're expecting Ollie Henry to really step up this year and start to have more of a presence inside that forward line now that Hawkins is gone and Shannon Neal is still on that road to on the road of progress. And Jeremy Cameron, he's going to be Jeremy Cameron. He's going to do freakish stuff. But I think we still need Ollie Henry to really take that next step, and looks like he's ready to take that next step after this match sim. I think it'll give him lots of confidence going forward, a lot of really good confidence boost, and it wasn't just like the marking and the goal kicking. He also had a bit of pressure, like forward line pressure on the Hawthorn players. So, yeah, I think everything he did was really positive signs for him. going forward. So cannot wait to see him out in the hoops again, and I can't wait to see the Cats play. It was exciting. It was
Love
good to
it.
see.
Absolutely. The next practice match for the Cats comes on Tuesday, the 25th, against the Bombers at 10 past
Next week.
7 p.m. I know. So we will definitely we'll be back in your ears with a recap of that game. We have to work out how we're going to do that. We might be a Wednesday night episode, maybe, because post game live. Ben, as we record this, in fact, Ben is
Ben's doing
doing
them
post
right
game
now.
live over on YouTube. Yep. So he'll probably be Tuesday night after the game. We'll probably drop on a Wednesday night, I reckon, our full recap and thoughts. We appreciate you greatly coming on and watching or listening, choosing your precious time to spend listening to us talk footy for you and with you in the 2025 Geelong Cats season. We're going to go now and talk on Patreon about off-season stuff we might have overlooked. There's a player in particular who joined the club that we probably didn't talk about enough, and we're going to do that now. And we'll also talk about a bit of a quirk in the fixture for the Cats that maybe we didn't give enough shine to either. So if you want to check that out, go on over, sign up for a 7-day
Negative
free
Nellies.
trial. That's right. On the Hoops Crew
Please don't leave us.
Media Network on Patreon. We'd love to see you over there. But until next time, you know what to do. Go Cats!
Go Cats!